Oh, welcome once again. And I bet if you're just tuning in and you're listening to the opening song here, it's a familiar tune from the 90s. So you probably just thought it was part of the playlist. This song is, of course, the Cranberries' Dreams. And I'm doing a little bit different movie than promoted. Had a change of plan at the last moment. Mikey Burke was going to be joining me, and there was a cancellation. He's going to be with me next week. So the movie that we were originally going to do, Silent Night, Deadly Night, the cult classic, will be next week instead. Have a little bit of a frog in my throat. And this is something that always happens, is that never enough water is what always seems to occur. That being said, we're going to be doing the Nicolas Cage movie Dream Scenerio. It's a brand new film from A24 Films. And it came out a few weeks ago, and I was able to catch it a couple of nights ago. I think Tuesday night, we went to check it out in Cinema in Abingdon. And we're going to talk about that tonight, because it's a movie that you probably haven't heard of, but I think that if you like Nicolas Cage, you like A24 Films, you like originality, and you like a story where you don't know where it's going, this could be the movie for you. There will be a few spoiler alerts, so just be mindful of that. Just a few, where it is still in theaters. I'm going to be very weary with giving away anything. But before we get into the movie, go check out all the social media at Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We have done, this will be episode number 31. So we have done 31 films in 2023. We started off, and then if you go back a couple years, Jake and I did a show called On the Movies, where we probably did a similar amount of shows also. But some of the movies that we've ran through, or we've watched, I'll run through them. Clay Pigeons, Indecent Proposal, Killing Zoe, The Beach, Jacob's Ladder, Infinity Pool, The Menu, Lost Highway, Memento, Pulp Fiction, Nightcrawler, Pump Up the Volume, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Natural Born Killers, Sling Blade, Cobra, Phone Booth, Con Air, Evil Dead Rise, The Crow, Lethal Weapon, House of Wax, Asteroid City, Drive, Punch Drunk Love, Point Break. We had a show about directors, The Getaway, The Salton Sea, Thanksgiving, The Killer, and that brings us to tonight's show, Dream Scenario. So, Dream Scenario is it's an original film. I heard about it maybe a couple months back. I saw a trailer that was coming out, but it's about a hapless family man that finds his life turned upside down when millions of strangers suddenly start seeing him in their dreams. When his nighttime appearances take a nightmarish turn, Paul is forced to navigate his newfound stardom. So, this is a film where, going in, if you watch the trailer itself, which is a very interesting trailer, you can kind of get the gist of what I just said. So this, quote, ordinary guy, Paul Matthews, who is played by Nicolas Cage, starts appearing in people's dreams. And suddenly, he becomes a sensation, a viral sensation. He's getting, he's a biologist, but he's also like a college professor as well. So he's getting all these ideas pitched to him, like being a Sprite spokesman for TikTok, and they want to try to get him to meet up, and maybe he could be in Barack Obama's dreams, and maybe he could be in different people's dreams, and they have this big thing that they want to turn him into an overnight celebrity, which is kind of a satire, I guess, on celebrity culture as well. So it leads to a couple of different random and interesting scenarios, dream scenario, for the character of Paul. And it's very difficult at times for him to navigate through this newfound fame. And the other side of fame is when everyone turns on you and you're canceled. We'll get into that in a little bit. Now, I don't have the typical, all the information prepared because I honestly, just sitting here a few moments before the show, I was going through in my mind, what movies have I seen recently? And I typically do watch a movie every night. Today I watched one. Last night I watched one as well, but it was the same movie, not Dream Scenario. Tuesday I watched Dream Scenario, and it was well worth it. Now, Dream Scenario, I'm not sure of the budget. Nicolas Cage does get paid $4 million per film. Now, he may have taken a budget, a salary cut to get into this movie. This is one of his best roles, acting-wise, in a while. You're not going to get the over-the-top Nicolas Cage that's, always counting and doing his over-the-top, manic, yelling persona. This is not the Nicolas Cage that you're going to be getting in this film. So don't really expect that. But it is a solid performance in a comedic yet dramatic, sad sack kind of way due to his character. Now we've got director Christopher Borderio, I think is how you pronounce his name. And this is one of his breakout movies as well. You've got Nicolas Cage, Lily Bird, Julianne Nicholson, Jessica Clement. Let's see who else we have here. We have Tim Meadows. If you remember Tim Meadows from back in Saturday Night Live days, he was the ladies' man. Side note, I used to go to this place called the Arlington Cinema in Draft House. And they would often have comedians there doing their shows, or sometimes they would show cinema. It was a cinema draft house. So I've seen a couple of people there, Jamie Kennedy, Janine Garofalo, Hal Sparks, and I happened to see Tim Meadows perform, but it wasn't really stand-up. It was more of like sketch comedy. It was like a trope or troupe. It was, I think there was like 5 to 8 people in there, and they were just doing these little, kind of these little stage sketches. And I would often be able to meet people at this place. So it was a really cool experience in a really cool place that I'd went to multiple times. But I didn't get to meet Tim Meadows. So, oh well. But anyway, so this movie it's got, a cast that you probably don't know most of them, but there are a couple of faces that pop up where you're like, oh, I know that person. I know that person. And it's got a couple of those people. So a little bit of facts about the movie. At one point, Ari Aster was directing the movie with Adam Sandler playing the main character. After Christopher's film Sick of Myself kind of blew up and got good reviews, it encouraged Ari in A24, to let him direct his own script. And Christoph wanted Nicolas Cage instead of Adam Sandler for the main character. So this could have been, and now, Adam Sandler in older age, like now in his 50s, I could see this being an Adam Sandler character because I've seen him play these more serious type characters in the past, and this would have been one that he would have been able to master, I think. I don't think he would have been able to master every nuance the same way that Nicolas Cage did, even down to the nervousness that his character exudes throughout. And this is another movie where Nicolas Cage has like a weird hairdo. Like most of his roles, Nicolas Cage came up with his own hairdo of this character. So it's kind of like the business around the side. It's kind of like, I guess, the '90s Captain Picard. You don't have any, you've got the chrome dome up top, but around the side you still have the hair. And that was Nicolas Cage's idea as well. So that's pretty much, a lot of the, facts. I don't want to give away too much, but I will say this, that Nicolas Cage added the stalker scene to the script based on a real life incident. There's kind of like a stalking scene in the movie dealing with his character and his family, and that was taken right out of Nicolas Cage's own life. Now, I don't have all the exact tomato score and all that. I do know it's in the 90s, 96, 97 last time I looked. But just like I said last week, and I was listening to something today on the Michael Rosenbaum, and Jamie Kennedy was on there talking. But the critics, what they think really don't matter. And I'm not even trying to look at the movies that I view through a critical standpoint, more of a discussional, whether I think they're enjoyable, whether they're entertaining, whether they set out to do what they set out to do, whether they do that and accomplish the goal that they're trying to do. Now, this movie does have a good critical score. I think this is a movie that if you go into it, this is not an action movie. This is a movie where you have to sit and think about, put yourself in that, and it's a little bit of an uncomfortable movie, for me anyway, because when people have things in film, in movies, and suddenly they lose them, or they're taken away, or they have to battle to get it back, it's always a bittersweet story, and it is for me as well. And it hits not, because I've always felt maybe in that coming back or the underdog type way, like some of these characters are. Now, I'm looking on IMDb at the moment, and like I said, I think it has 96% positive on the Rotten Tomatoes, the tomatoes that are rotten, and it's got a good score on IMDb as well. I will tell you that score momentarily as it pops up. It is a 7.4, and I do feel sometimes Rotten Tomatoes, if you take like the amalgamation of Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and the audience rating score, which is very valuable, I think, as well. But you kind of put them together and put them in a pot, you'll get somewhere where the movie lies critically. But just because a movie doesn't land critically doesn't mean the movie is not a good movie. It doesn't mean the movie hasn't done what it set out to do. So, anyway, in this scenario, I think that Dream Scenario gets if we're going by the traditional Siskel and Ebert thumbs up, I will give it 2 thumbs up. I wouldn't imagine this movie to have a high budget, probably 15 million, if I would say $10 to $15 million. It might not make that back theatrically. It's made about 4, maybe 5 million back. It just came out. But this movie will be a movie that it could win some awards. I'm not sure if it's up for anything yet, but it could be. I wouldn't be surprised if it's an underdog and comes in, wins Nicolas Cage or the writer, director, a couple of Independent Spirit Awards. It's not a mainstream movie, so I don't think it's going to get any mainstream. I don't think it's going to be playing locally. I don't even know if it would play at the Fort Henry Mall Theater. Maybe in Tinseltown, or not Tinseltown, but the Pinnacle. It was at Cinemall, and it is at the AMC in Johnson City. And I'm always for supporting local cinema and cinema in general, because there's so many things out there that just aren't good. And even that's theatrically now, things that aren't good. And that makes me sad. It really does make me sad. Because it's a great experience going to the movies and experiencing that work that so many people put together to make something and present it in the way it's meant to be presented. Now, some things aren't meant to be presented, or it doesn't matter if it's presented in the theater. But a lot do. Here's another little song. So yeah, this is a film that, if you enjoy Nicolas Cage, if you enjoy acting in general, if you enjoy a story that wants to be told, and it progresses. It's a slow build of a story. It's a quick, I think it's an hour and 45 minutes. And I think it goes relatively quickly. I don't think there were any slow spots that I can remember. And I'm always for one, leave the audience wanting more. Make it a few minutes too short than a few minutes too long. That's because a lot of my favorite movies, they're great movies, but they're long movies. And they're hard to watch in one sitting for me, unless I watched them at the theater, because I was forced to. And I was there, and I enjoyed that, the whole experience. So let's get into a few little things. Like I said, we had the plot and the story. Nicolas Cage is a professor. He starts popping up in everyone's dreams. So therefore, everyone feels like they know him. But in the dreams, he doesn't really do anything. He just appears in the dreams. That leads to a viral sensation. He goes and he's interviewed. He's trying to get his book about ants, because he's anthologist, and he is trying to get his book published. So he thinks this is a way that he can actually get his work out there, when everyone else just wants to use him as a pitchman for Sprite or advertising and such. There's an event that happens within the film where everything takes a drastic change, and somewhat of a backlash occurs. Spoiler alert. Just tune out for just a moment. But a backlash does occur. And the backlash, and he loses so many things that he had. He loses the job. He loses the wife. He loses... people wanted to come up and get a selfie with him. He loses it all just because he appears nightmarish at some points in the dream, in other people's dreams. And that makes you kind of put a mirror back up to society. And, it makes you think a little bit about the cancel culture that happens now. People being canceled for things that were said 20, 25 years ago. People being shut down or their lives being ruined over virtually nothing that they've done overnight. And that is some of the scenarios that kind of plays out in Dream Scenario as well. The characters, I do think all the characters, they're rich characters. I think they're all acted well. Nicolas Cage, like I praised earlier, gives a fantastic performance. And it's a performance that we've not seen from Nicolas Cage in quite some time. He did the Willy's Wonderland a couple years back, had no dialogue. He did the Dracula movie. The name of it just makes me... I can't believe I can't think of it. But he did that last year. And then he had the Unbearable Lightness of Nicolas Cage or whatever. The Incredible and Talented Nicolas Cage, whatever that movie was, with Pedro Pascal. So he's been on the rise with some good projects the last couple of years. And this is another solid project. The thing is, for a lot of these projects that Nicolas Cage are doing, the movie theater is not geared nowadays to really accept anything other than a blockbuster movie. I've spoke about this many times before. That's one of the reasons I like to do this show, is to let people in on movies they may not have seen. This isn't another Avengers. This isn't another blockbuster, even though on decline, Disney film. It's not a Hunger Games type film. This is a small little dramedy And I don't even want to say it's quirky, although it does have these little quirky parts to it. But it's a movie that you have to think about and you actually have to watch. It's not got your traditional first. I mean, I guess it does have your traditional first, second, third acts. But within those acts, you don't know exactly what's going to happen, which is exciting for a moviegoer, I think. Because I know when I'm watching Avengers, or I know when I'm watching, any kind of a superhero movie, they're going to be flipping and jumping through the air 7 to 10 times, multiple times. I guess that's the fun of it. In an action film, typically they're going to shoot 30 to 50 bullets without even reloading the gun. But this film, other than the fact that you take this scenario where everyone is dreaming of this one person randomly for no reason, take that little aspect out of it, and it's centered in real life scenarios and situations that can indeed happen and have happened as well. So that's just another aspect that makes it kind of a cool little thing. There's a couple of good scenes. I'm not going to give away any exact scene since the movie is still in the theaters, but there is a very heartbreaking scene with Nicolas Cage and this one girl who has been dreaming of Nicolas Cage, but in this particular dream, he is actually doing something, and it leads to a very sad situation. Although the intended deed wasn't as nefarious as probably originally, it wasn't conceived that way with his character, but even though he does start to follow through with a little bit, this one particular scene, it is heartbreaking, I think, and it's a very embarrassing scene, and you feel bad for the character. So I would put that under one of the most. It was one of the most emotional scenes. It wasn't my least favorite, but it was emotionally a heartbreaking scene. And my favorite scene of the film, I've thought about that over the last couple, 24 minutes. What would be my favorite scene of this particular movie? And I cannot tell you because it would give away some of the movie, which happens to be in theaters. So when we do maybe an updated version, I will give that out. But there are some scenes that you will probably really, really like, and maybe a scene or two. I don't think there's any scenes that you're going to flat out dislike. But there might be that scene that makes you uncomfortable, excuse me, with a heartbreak as well. The score and the music, I think it was a highlight. I've not played a lot of it throughout the show. I've been trying to search for quite a bit of it. But it does seem, it's got a few little eclectic, and that wasn't one of them. Sorry about that. I could tell you right away when I first heard the lyrics, I was like, that's not really part of the soundtrack. But the score sounds, it's a good score. It helps the movie when it should help the movie. It is the bed that's holding the mattress up, and you're the person on the mattress. So the music bed is there. We'll go with In Dreams or Dreams again. But, I don't think this is anything that anyone's going to rush out and buy the soundtrack. But this is a score that if you like, quirky little movie scores that go along with, I guess quirky little movies, this is going to be a musical score that you like. I was discussing last night with my producers that some of the best scores or soundtracks, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, that's an amazing soundtrack. Last of the Mohicans, that's a great soundtrack as well. You've got Wicker Park, which has some great tracks, which is an underrated film. I'm not saying it's a great film, but it's a film that I really enjoy, maybe out of nostalgia or just the poster, the scenery, the feel of the movie, everything encompassed together But that's another good soundtrack. And then you have another one we seemed to mention last night was Garden State. Had a really solid soundtrack as well. So I would recommend checking it out on YouTube or anything, or maybe Spotify, iTunes. Go in there and check it out if you're into that type of film music and score. That's a good thing to do. Also, originality. Like I said throughout this episode, this was a very original film. I think that it will go down, if you look back in 10, 20 years. Probably the later part of Nicolas Cage's career, one of his better films. I think it's a film that will go down as one of his better acting films in his later career. And just as I've learned yesterday, he might only have 4 to 5 movies left in him. He's approaching 60. He might already be 60. So he wants to spend the last couple, 10, 15 years with his family. So this may be one of Nicolas Cage's last career films. The poster, it's an original poster. There's a couple of different ones. You can go on IMDb and look that up and check it out and make your own judgment on that. But it's a really cool poster. It kind of conveys what the movie is really about in the poster. And would I recommend it or not? I think you would know just by listening to this little review and discussion that I would recommend this movie. If you do like Nicolas Cage, you do want a little bit of a complex, thought-provoking movie. It's easy to follow, but it does ask some questions, and it isn't your typical, Saturday matinee film. It's a slow burn. It's got some laughs. It has some uncomfortable scenes. It's got a good soundtrack, a solid cast. And if you're looking for something a little bit off the beaten path, I would say Dream Scenario is a movie that you should check out. As always, thank you for checking out Real Talk. You can go to all of our social media pages. That is the Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram. Thank you for listening tonight on 92.5 WLSD or on WLSDradio.com. Stay tuned for the Other People Show in just a few moments. Have a good night.